On Christmas Eve, another man knocked on my lake house door while my 7-year-old son was upstairs waiting for Santa, and in that moment, I realized my marriage hadn't been fading at all. It had already been replaced. I was 39 that Christmas, and if you had seen me from the outside, you probably would have thought I had the kind of life people quietly envy: a wife, a son, a lake house, a business that paid the bills without swallowing my soul whole. The sort of life that looked good in holiday cards and social media photos: warm lights in the windows, snow on the dock, a little boy in a red sweater, a smiling woman with one hand wrapped around a mug and the other resting lightly on my arm. But pictures lie, and sometimes they lie so well that even the man inside them starts believing the frame more than the truth. My name is Owen Mercer. I owned a custom boat repair and restoration shop about 40 minutes outside Madison, and for most of my adult life, I had worked with my hands. Fiberglass dust in my hair, grease in the lines of my palms, long hours, honest money. I wasn't flashy, never had been. I liked quiet mornings, strong coffee, old wood, and the sound of lake water tapping against the pilings under the house. That lake house had been my one real indulgence. It wasn't some giant mansion, not the kind rich people bought just to use twice a year and brag about to their friends. It was older than that, more personal: cedar siding darkened by weather, a wide porch with a swing that creaked when the wind picked up, stone fireplace, big front windows facing the frozen water. My father had bought the land when I was a kid, and after he died, I spent years rebuilding the place board by board, paycheck by paycheck. Every railing, every cabinet, every plank on the dock had passed through my hands. So when I say it was my lake house, I don't just mean legally. I mean pieces of my life were buried in the walls. My wife Claire knew that. She also knew Christmas there mattered to me more than anywhere else on earth. When we first got married, she used to say the house felt like stepping inside a snow globe. She'd laugh, tuck her legs under a blanket on the couch, and watch me build the fire like it was some sacred ritual. Back then, I believed her. Back then, when she smiled at me across the room, I felt lucky in a way that made me a little embarrassed. Like happiness was something fragile and private, and if I looked at it too directly, it might vanish. Maybe that should have been my first clue: the fact that I kept talking about our early years like they belonged to somebody else. Claire and I had been married for 11 years. We had one son, Noah, who had just turned 7 that fall. He was the center of my world without even trying to be. Big brown eyes, serious little face. The kind of kid who noticed everything, even when adults thought he was busy with crayons or cartoons. He loved drawing more than anything: dinosaurs, boats, trees, whole made-up little worlds with tiny details tucked into every corner. He was also at that age where he still reached for my hand without thinking. That mattered to me more than I can explain, because if I'm being honest, by that Christmas, Noah was the one thing in my life that still felt uncomplicated. My marriage wasn't. I didn't have some dramatic movie scene to point to at first. No lipstick on a collar, no midnight confession, no mysterious hotel receipt fluttering out of a coat pocket. It was smaller than that, slower, 100 little things that didn't fit together right, like a puzzle forced into the wrong shape. Claire had become distant in ways that were hard to accuse and impossible to ignore. She started carrying her phone face down, always. On the kitchen counter, on the arm of the couch, even on the bathroom sink. If I walked into a room while she was texting, her thumb moved fast. Then the screen went black. She began smiling at messages she never shared. Then, when I asked who it was, she'd answer too quickly, too casually: just Emily, just my sister, just a group chat, just work. That word started to follow me around. Just, just tired, just stressed, just a friend. I heard it so often I almost stopped hearing it at all. At first I told myself not to become that husband. You know the one. Suspicious, bitter, reading into tone and timing and silence. My own father had been a jealous man, and I grew up watching how poison spreads inside a house. I promised myself I would never turn into someone who policed his wife's every move, so I swallowed things. I explained them away. I worked longer hours. I told myself marriage had seasons, and maybe this was just a cold one. But cold can become normal if you stay in it long enough. I remember one night in early December, maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. Snow had started falling outside, soft and steady, dusting the yard in white. Noah was asleep upstairs. I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes when Claire came in already dressed to go out. Dark jeans, black sweater, hair done, but not in the casual way she used when she was meeting one of her girlfriends. You heading somewhere? I asked. She grabbed her keys without looking at me. Lena's having a last-minute get-together. Tonight, she shrugged. It wasn't planned. I dried my hands on a dish towel and studied her face. Not openly, just enough to catch what was there, or what wasn't. She looked alert, almost electric, not like someone dragging herself out to a social obligation, more like someone trying not to seem eager. What time will you be back? I asked. That was when she finally looked at me, and I felt that tiny sting I've never forgotten. Like my question annoyed her. I don't know, Owen. Why? Because it's after 9. So? I let out a breath. So nothing. I asked a question. Her jaw tightened. Then she gave me that thin smile I'd started seeing more and more. The kind that had no warmth in it at all. I'll text you. She left without kissing me. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after the door shut. The faucet dripped. Somewhere upstairs, the heat kicked on with that old metallic clank our house always made in winter. And I remember pressing both hands against the counter, looking out at the snow, feeling something dark and shapeless move in my chest. Not certainty, worse. The beginning of it. After that, I started noticing a name. Evan. It came up lightly at first. Too lightly. Claire mentioned him one evening while we were decorating the tree with Noah. Said he'd switched firms and was doing consulting now. Then a few days later, she brought him up again, laughing at something funny he had said years ago at some office party I had never attended. Then again in the car, while talking about holiday travel. Casual, random, supposedly meaningless. I asked, "This Evan guy from work?" She adjusted the vent toward her face. "Former work." "Right." There was a pause. Then she said it. "Oh, don't start. He's just a friend." I hadn't even accused her of anything. That was the part that landed wrong. People tell on themselves in strange ways, sometimes not by what they say, but by the speed of the defense. I remember turning my eyes back to the road, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. "I didn't say he wasn't," she laughed, but there was no softness in it. Good. From then on, the phrase lived in my head, just a friend. By the week of Christmas, the house was decorated. The lake was frozen solid near the shore, and every part of me felt stretched tight. We had planned to spend the holiday at the lake house like always. 3 nights. Christmas Eve dinner, Christmas morning by the fire, sledding if the snow held. Noah had been talking about it since Thanksgiving. He wanted to hang birdseed ornaments outside for the cardinals and leave carrots on the porch for Santa's reindeer. He had already packed 2 stuffed animals and his favorite colored pencils. I wanted those few days to be peaceful. God, I wanted that more than I wanted to be right. So when Claire brought up Evan again the night before we were supposed to leave, I nearly missed the ground shifting under my feet. We were in the bedroom folding clothes into duffel bags. She said it while matching socks, like it was the most natural thing in the world. By the way, Evan might stop by the lake house for a day. I looked up so fast my neck actually hurt. What? She didn't stop folding. He's going to be nearby visiting his brother. Nearby where? About an hour out. Claire. Now she looked at me. Calm. Too calm. What? You invited another man to my lake house for Christmas? Her expression hardened immediately. He's not another man. He's my friend. I stared at her. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Over Christmas. It's not a big deal. It is to me. She gave an irritated sigh and zipped one side of her bag. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring it up earlier. That sentence hit me like cold water. Not because of what it said, because of what it admitted. I stood there holding one of Noah's folded sweaters in my hand, staring at my wife like I didn't recognize her. You didn't want to bring it up earlier, I repeated. So this wasn't some last-minute thing. Claire crossed her arms. I knew you'd overreact. Overreact. I let out a short, hollow laugh. You want to bring a man I barely know to the one place on earth that actually means something to me. On Christmas, with our son there, and I'm overreacting? Her face changed then. Not guilt, not even embarrassment. Irritation. Sharp, polished irritation. You're making this ugly. No, I said quietly. I think ugly was already there. I'm just finally looking at it. For a second, neither of us moved. The room was still except for the faint rustle of the heating vent and the soft thud of Noah's footsteps somewhere down the hall. That sound snapped me back fast. I lowered my voice at once. Is he coming or not? Claire looked away first. I told him we'd see. My chest tightened. That wasn't a no. I set Noah's sweater down on the bed with more care than I felt. Then let me make this simple. He's not coming to the lake house. She laughed once under her breath, but it was bitter. You don't get to dictate who I see at my family house? Over Christmas? Actually, yes, I do. The second I said it, her eyes flashed. That old argument. Ownership. Territory. Boundaries. Words married people are not supposed to need, because love is supposed to make them obvious. But by then, nothing between us felt obvious anymore. She stepped closer. You know what your problem is, Owen? You think because you built that place with your own two hands, it gives you the right to control everyone inside it? I felt my pulse in my throat. No. I think inviting the man you've been hiding behind the phrase "just a friend" for weeks into our family Christmas is insane. Her mouth fell open just slightly. There it was. The first real hit. Then she recovered. You're unbelievable. Am I wrong? She grabbed the zipper of her duffel so hard it snagged. Yes. Then look me in the eye and tell me there is nothing going on. That did it. Not because she answered. Because she didn't. People think silence is empty. It isn't. Silence can be the loudest thing in a room if you've been waiting for the truth long enough. I watched her face. The tiny twitch near her mouth. The way her shoulders went stiff. The way her eyes dropped for half a second before coming back to mine harder than before. I am not doing this tonight, she said. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. The bedroom door creaked open before either of us could say another word. Noah stood there in dinosaur pajamas, hair mussed from sleep, holding his sketchbook against his chest. Dad? I turned so fast I nearly stumbled over the bag. Hey, buddy. He looked from me to Claire and back again. He knew. Kids always know. Maybe not the details, but the weather in a room, the pressure, the shape of a storm before it breaks. Are we still going tomorrow? He asked. My heart dropped. Claire answered too quickly. Of course we are. I crouched down to his level. Yeah, buddy, we're still going. He studied my face with those two serious eyes of his. Okay, then he held out the sketchbook. I drew the house. I took it from him. On the page was our lake house under a sky full of stars, smoke rising from the chimney, the dock covered in snow. 3 stick figures stood on the porch holding hands. Me, Claire, and Noah. He had even drawn the porch swing. Something inside me folded in on itself. "It's perfect," I said, and my voice almost held. He smiled, sleepy and proud. "Can I bring my flashlight too? In case I want to look for reindeer tracks." "You can bring 2 flashlights," I said. That made him grin. He padded back down the hall, and when he was gone, the bedroom felt even colder than before. Claire sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed her forehead. She suddenly looked tired, really tired, but I had no idea anymore whether that softness was real or just another pause in the performance. "We're not doing this in front of him," she said. I stood by the dresser, arms hanging at my sides, too angry to know what to do with my hands. "Then stop giving me reasons to." She didn't answer. We packed in silence after that. The next morning, we left for the lake house under a sky as white and flat as old paper. Noah was excited enough for all 3 of us. He kicked his boots against the back of my seat, pointed out every decorated house we passed, and asked at least 6 times if frozen lakes could crack open under deer. Claire sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her phone, face down whenever Noah looked over, face lit up whenever she thought I wasn't watching. About halfway there, her phone buzzed in her lap. She glanced at it, then angled the screen away with a movement so small she probably thought I missed it. I didn't. "Who is it?" I asked, eyes still on the road. "Emily." "Of course." She turned toward the window. "Don't." I drove the rest of the way with my jaw clenched so hard it ached. When the lake house finally came into view through the trees, Noah let out a shout so happy it hurt my chest. Snow covered the roof and porch rails in thick white layers. The pines behind the house stood dark and still. The lake beyond was a sheet of dull silver under the winter sky. Home, or what used to feel like home. I killed the engine, and for a moment nobody moved. Then Noah burst out of the car before I could even tell him to wait, boots crunching through snow as he ran for the porch. "Slow down," I called. He turned only long enough to shout, "I'm gonna see if the bird feeder's frozen." I grabbed the bags and followed him up the walk. The key stuck in the old front lock the way it always did in winter. I had to shoulder the door once to get it open. The familiar smell hit me immediately. Cedar, cold stone, old smoke, and still air. For 1 second, muscle memory almost won. For 1 second, I was just a husband bringing his family to the lake for Christmas. Then Claire brushed past me, phone already in hand, and the illusion cracked again. The day settled into chores. I shoveled the porch steps, brought in wood from the side stack, got the heat running properly, lit the fireplace. Noah dragged out the box of ornaments like it was treasure. Claire moved around the kitchen, making coffee, unpacking food, saying little. We were all playing our roles. And if I'm honest, I played mine too, because Noah was there. Because Christmas has momentum, and once a child starts building it in his head, it feels cruel to stop the machine. By late afternoon, the house looked warm. Lights in the windows, fire going, music low from the old speaker in the kitchen. Noah had hung his paper snowflakes crookedly along the banister. He was on the floor near the hearth, drawing by the firelight, tongue peeking out in concentration. Claire stood at the counter, pouring wine into a glass. I was cutting kindling when I heard the back door open. I looked up sharply. It was only wind. The latch hadn't caught. Cold air moved through the mudroom in a quick, bitter gust. But that jolt in my chest stayed with me. Dinner that night was quiet, but not hostile. Not openly. Noah talked enough to fill the spaces. He wanted to know if foxes slept in snow, if Santa ever got tired of cookies, if I thought the lake fish were cold. Claire even smiled at him a few times. Real smiles, maybe. Or maybe motherhood was the one part of her that hadn't gone numb. After Noah went upstairs, I found her on the back porch wrapped in a coat, wine glass in hand, staring out at the black shape of the lake. The porch boards creaked under my boots when I stepped outside. She didn't turn. "You texted him, didn't you?" I asked. Her shoulders rose and fell. "I don't want to fight." "That's not an answer." She took a sip of wine. I told him not to come. I searched her profile in the porch light. Did he answer? A beat. Yes, and? She was silent long enough that I felt my stomach turn. Claire. She finally looked at me, and her face was unreadable. He said he understood. I wanted to believe her. God help me. I wanted that more than I wanted to win. But trust, once cracked, changes shape. Even the truth sounds rehearsed. I leaned against the porch post and looked out over the dark lake. Tell me something honestly, right now. No spin, no deflection. She said nothing. Are you in love with him? The question hung there between us, white in the cold air. For a long moment I heard nothing but the distant knock of loose dock rope against wood and the faint hiss of wind over ice. Then she said, very softly, I don't know. That answer was worse than yes. I actually felt myself sway a little, not dramatically, just enough to remind me my body was still attached to this conversation, still taking the damage. You don't know, I repeated. She looked down at her glass. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. There it was, the coward's confession. Not I didn't do it, not you're wrong. Just the sad little shrug of someone who wants the pain without the blame. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it at all. Of course you didn't. Owen. No, go ahead, say it. Tell me how it just happened. Tell me how texting him just happened. How hiding your phone just happened. How inviting him here just happened. Her eyes flashed wet in the porch light. You haven't been happy either. I stared at her. That is not the same thing. You've been gone even when you're in the room. I've been working, raising our son, holding this family together with both hands while you. I stopped, swallowed hard, then forced the words out, while you looked somewhere else for excitement. She flinched like I had slapped her. Good. Maybe I wanted her to. For a second I thought she might finally say the whole truth. Instead she whispered, I didn't plan to hurt you. That did it. I stepped back from the porch rail, suddenly needing distance. You know what's amazing? You keep talking like pain is some weather system, like it rolled in on its own. I opened the door and paused with one hand on the frame. If he shows up here, Claire, we're done. Not almost. Not maybe. Done. Then I went inside and locked the door behind me. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning was Christmas Eve. Snow started before dawn, thick, slow flakes drifting past the windows. Noah woke up early and climbed into my bed like he used to when he was smaller. He whispered, Can we make the cinnamon rolls now? And for a few minutes, just a few, life felt simple again. We made them together in the kitchen while the house was still half asleep. He stirred too fast and got flour on his pajamas. I pretended not to notice when he stole brown sugar by the pinch. His laughter filled the room, soft and bright, and I clung to that sound like a man clings to driftwood. Claire came downstairs around 8, hair tied back, sweater hanging loose off one shoulder. She looked at us, at the flour on the counter and Noah grinning in his chair, and for a moment her face changed, not into guilt, into grief. It passed so fast I almost doubted it. She kissed the top of Noah's head, poured coffee, and stood by the sink while he told her all about his plan to leave reindeer carrots in a neat line on the porch so they wouldn't fight. You think reindeer fight? She asked. They might if they're hungry. She smiled. Fair point. I watched the two of them and felt something splinter inside me all over again. Because this was the cruelty of it. Betrayal doesn't erase the normal moments. It poisons them, makes every smile suspicious, every tenderness temporary, every memory unstable. By noon, the snow was deeper, the lake almost invisible behind the white curtain falling from the sky. We spent the afternoon inside. Noah drew. I chopped extra wood. Claire wrapped the last of the gifts at the dining table. Her phone buzzed once around 3, just once. but I saw the color drain from her face when she looked at it. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I waited until Noah ran upstairs to get his flashlight. Then I crossed the room and held out my hand. "Give me the phone." Claire stared at me like I had spoken another language. "What? You heard me." "No." "Then tell me who it was." She stood up so fast her chair scraped hard across the floor. "You don't get to do this. I don't get to ask who keeps texting my wife on Christmas Eve at my lake house." Her voice dropped. "Lower your voice. Then answer me." She was breathing hard now. It was him. I felt all the blood leave my face. The fire popped in the grate behind me. Somewhere upstairs, Noah was singing to himself, totally unaware that his family was balancing on a knife edge. "What did he say?" I asked. She didn't answer. I took one step closer. "Claire, what did he say?" Her eyes filled. "He said he was already on the road," and in that exact moment, as if the universe had been waiting for the cruelest possible timing, headlights swept across the front windows. The light moved across the living room wall like a blade. For one frozen second, none of us breathed. Then I heard it. Tires crushing fresh snow outside, an engine idling low, a car door opening and shutting with a muffled thud. Claire went white, not pale, white. I turned to her slowly, and I swear the whole house seemed to tilt under my feet. The fire crackled behind me. The old windows trembled faintly in the wind. Upstairs, Noah's footsteps thudded once, then stopped. "You told me he understood," I said. My voice came out so calm it frightened even me. Claire's lips parted, but nothing came out. I nodded once. "Of course." Then someone knocked on the front door. 3 firm knocks. Not hesitant, not uncertain, like he belonged there. My jaw locked so hard pain shot into my temple. I started toward the door, but Claire moved first, grabbing my arm with both hands. "Owen, please." I looked down at her fingers digging into my sleeve, then at her face. "Move." "He doesn't know," she whispered. "He thinks—" I let out a hollow laugh. "He thinks what? That my wife invited him to spend Christmas at my family lake house, and her husband would just smile and pour him a drink?" The knocking came again, louder this time. Upstairs, Noah called, "Dad?" That single word cut through everything. I looked toward the stairs and forced my voice steady. "Stay upstairs, buddy." Silence. Then a small, worried, "Okay." I pulled my arm free from Claire's grip and opened the front door. The cold hit first. Sharp, clean, merciless. Then I saw him, Evan Mercer. 40, maybe 41. Taller than I expected. Dark winter coat dusted with snow. Leather duffel slung over one shoulder. He had the kind of face that probably put people at ease quickly. Controlled smile. Soft eyes. Polished. The kind of man who knew exactly how to seem harmless. That smile died the second he saw me. He blinked once, then looked past my shoulder and saw Claire standing in the living room. Something in his face changed. Not confusion, recognition. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. "Owen," he said, and even hearing my name in his mouth made my stomach turn. I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door almost shut behind me. Snow drifted across the yard in slow white sheets. The lake was a ghost behind the trees. "You need to leave," I said. He swallowed. "Claire told me things were complicated, but she said—" "I do not care what Claire said." His hand tightened on the strap of his duffel. "I didn't come here to start a fight." That almost made me laugh. "No? Then what exactly did you come here to do? Rescue her? Spend Christmas by the fire with another man's wife and child? Play house in my father's home?" His eyes flicked toward the door behind me. "She told me your marriage was over." There it was. Simple, ugly, final. For a second, I couldn't hear the wind anymore. Couldn't feel the cold. My whole body just went still, like it was bracing for impact a second too late. I nodded slowly. "Did she?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me more than any confession could have. I stepped closer. Listen very carefully. My son is upstairs. This is his Christmas, so I'm going to ask you one more time, nicely, before I stop being nice. Get back in your car and drive away. Evan looked over my shoulder again, searching for Claire through the narrow opening in the door. That was his mistake, because in that moment, I saw it clearly. Not romance, not some tragic love story, just entitlement. Two adults telling themselves a prettier version of what they were doing because the truth was too ugly to carry raw. He exhaled through his nose. She said she was unhappy for years. I felt something hot and electric flash through my chest. Leave. Owen, maybe we should all just talk. I grabbed the front of his coat and shoved him backward off the porch so hard he nearly slipped in the snow. Leave. My voice cracked across the yard like a gunshot. He stumbled, caught himself, and raised both hands. All right, all right. The front door flew open behind me. Claire's voice shook. Stop it! I turned on her so fast she froze in the doorway, one hand still on the knob, snow blowing around her bare ankles. Get inside. Owen, inside. Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the fact that for the first time in our marriage I sounded like a stranger even to myself. Whatever it was, she stepped back. Evan stood in the snow, breathing hard, humiliated and angry now. You should know, I said, staring straight at him. Whatever story she told you, you walked into a house with a child in it on Christmas Eve. Remember that about yourself. He opened his mouth, thought better of it, then turned and trudged back to his car. A moment later, the engine started. Headlights swept across the trees. Then he was gone. I stood in the snow for several seconds after the taillights disappeared. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, from the force it took not to go after him, not to keep going until all that rage had somewhere physical to land. When I finally stepped back inside, Claire was standing in the middle of the living room with tears streaming down her face. I shut the door carefully, locked it, checked it twice. Then I faced her. No more lies. She pressed both hands over her mouth. How long? Her shoulders started trembling. Owen, how long? She dropped her hands. 6 months. The number hit like a hammer. I looked away, then back at her. And you brought him here. She was crying openly now. But it didn't move me. Not then. Maybe because grief and disgust had already taken up all the room in my chest. I didn't think it would happen like this. I laughed, and the sound was vicious. There you go again. Like you slipped on ice and landed in an affair. She flinched. Did Noah ever meet him? Her eyes widened. No. Never. Did you bring him near my son? No. I stepped closer. Swear to me. I swear. I believed her. Barely. But enough. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. We both looked toward the stairs. Then Noah appeared. He was halfway down, clutching his flashlight in one hand, his little face tight with fear. He had heard enough. Maybe not the details, but enough. Dad? Dad? My heart broke right there. Clean down the middle. I crossed the room fast and crouched in front of him. Hey! Hey, buddy! His eyes moved to Claire, then back to me. Who's outside? I swallowed hard. Nobody now. Why were you yelling? There are moments when life gives you no good choice. Only the least damaging lie. I put a hand on his shoulder. A man came to the wrong house. That's all. It's handled. He studied me in that way kids do when they're trying to decide if adults are safe to trust. Are you mad? I wanted to say no. I couldn't. I'm upset, I said carefully. But not at you. His chin trembled. Is Christmas ruined? That question nearly dropped me to my knees. I pulled him into my arms and held him so tight he gave a tiny squeak. No, buddy, no. Christmas is not ruined. Behind him, over his shoulder, I looked at Claire. She was crying silently now, motionless, useless. I stood and took Noah upstairs, sat on the edge of his bed until his breathing steadied. He asked if Santa could still find the house in the snow. I said yes. Of course, yes. He asked if I would still be there in the morning. That one almost killed me. Yes, I whispered. I'll be right here. He finally fell asleep with the flashlight still in his hand. I sat in the dark beside him for a long time, listening to the wind against the windows and the old house settling around us. My chest hurt. My teeth hurt. Even my skin felt wrong, too tight for what was inside it. When I went back downstairs, Claire was sitting on the couch staring at the dead black screen of her phone on the coffee table. I didn't sit. I want you gone by morning. Her head jerked up. What? You heard me. It's Christmas Eve. Yes. She stood, hugging herself. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at her for a long moment. You should have thought about that before inviting your affair partner to my house. She closed her eyes like I had struck her. I can't drive in this weather, she said. That much was true. Snow was falling hard now. The roads were bad and getting worse. I nodded toward the guest room off the mudroom. You can stay there tonight. Door closed. We tell Noah in the morning that you need to go help Grandma with something. Then you leave. She stared at me. You would really do this on Christmas? I felt my whole face go cold. You already did. That ended it. She took her phone and disappeared into the guest room. I heard the lock click. I spent the rest of the night in the armchair by the fire with a blanket over my knees and the shotgun from the hall closet, leaning beside the hearth. Not because I thought Evan would come back, because I didn't know what else to do with the shaking in my body. Morning came gray and bitter cold. Noah woke early, as kids do on Christmas. For one precious hour, I let him have it. We opened gifts. He laughed when he found the drawing kit he'd wanted. He hugged me so hard over a stupid remote control snowcat toy that I nearly cried into his hair. Claire came out eventually, already dressed, face washed, eyes swollen. She played her part, kissed Noah's forehead, smiled when she needed to, told him Grandma needed help after all and she'd be back soon. He accepted it because children still believe the people they love. At the front door, she stopped and turned to me. Please don't make him hate me. I looked past her at the snow-covered yard. That part is up to you. Then she left. I watched from the window until her car disappeared down the long white drive. The silence after was enormous. Noah spent most of that day drawing in front of the fireplace while I moved through the house like a man learning how to exist inside his own skin again. I made lunch, took him outside to throw snowballs, helped him hang the birdseed ornaments, smiled when he smiled, answered questions, kept going because that's what fathers do. 3 days later, I filed. The divorce itself was ugly in the quiet, procedural way real betrayals often are. No screaming courtroom, no dramatic collapse, just paperwork, schedules, disclosures, lawyers. Claire wanted shared custody. I wanted stability for Noah. In the end, because she had no affair-proof way to explain Christmas Eve, and because Evan had apparently decided vanishing was easier than standing beside the wreckage, I got primary custody. Claire moved into a rental condo 40 minutes away. Evan never contacted me again, but karma, if you want to call it that, came quietly. About 8 months later, I heard through mutual friends that he had been engaged the whole time to someone in Chicago. She found out. His consulting contract dried up after a messy internal scandal. Last I heard, he was living alone in a one-bedroom apartment over a dental office somewhere in Indiana. I didn't celebrate. I was too busy rebuilding. That first year after the divorce was brutal. Noah had nightmares for a while, not every night, just enough. He'd wake up and come stand in my doorway with his blanket dragging behind him, eyes half open, asking if he could sleep on the floor beside my bed. I always said yes. Claire tried, in her own uneven way. Some weekends she showed up eager and bright with overplanned activities and expensive toys. Other weekends she canceled because of work or something coming up. Noah learned faster than I wanted him to. Kids always do. The lake house changed too. For a while, I couldn't walk onto that porch without seeing headlights on the windows, couldn't hear a phone buzz without my stomach turning over. I thought about selling it, more than once, starting fresh somewhere no memory could ambush me in the hallway. But one spring morning, after the thaw, Noah and I went up there alone. The ice had broken. The dock rocked gently in cold blue water. He ran down to the shore with a fishing net and shouted because he'd found a frog no bigger than his thumb. The air smelled like cedar and mud and wet earth waking up, and standing there, watching my son laugh in the same yard where my heart had cracked open, I realized something. She didn't get to take that place from me too, so I kept it. I repainted the guest room, changed the locks, took down the old family photos and put up new ones. Just me and Noah. Fish on the dock, snow forts, pancake mornings, bad haircuts, real life, messy, honest. Ours. Now, 2 years later, when people ask if that Christmas destroyed me, I tell them the truth. No, it exposed what was already rotting, and that hurt like hell. It still does sometimes. On certain winter nights, when the house is too quiet and the lake is black glass beyond the windows, when Noah is asleep upstairs and memory comes in soft-footed. But it also saved me because I would rather be shattered by the truth than comforted by a lie. These days, Christmas at the lake house is smaller, simpler, better. Noah is 9 now. He still draws at the fireplace, though his boats are getting better and his trees finally look like trees. He still asks if reindeer fight over carrots. He still reaches for my hand without thinking when the dock is icy. And me, I still make the cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. I still check the lock twice when the wind rises. But now, when headlights cross the windows at night, I don't freeze. I just look up, breathe easy, and remember that some doors closing are the only reason you survive long enough to build a life worth keeping. If you've ever been the last one to learn the truth in your own home, I want you to hear me. You are not weak for missing what was right in front of you. You are not foolish for loving someone honestly. And when the lie finally breaks, when the whole rotten thing comes down, and you're left standing in the wreckage with your heart pounding and your hands shaking, that is not the end. Sometimes that's the first clean breath of your real life. And if this story stayed with you, let me know in the comments. Would you have opened that door? Or would you have let him keep knocking?